Assalamu alaikum, friends of BookBytes. I've got such a special treat to end off Heritage Month. We talk about influencers, and I've got someone on air today who was an influencer before influencers became a buzzword. We have media personality, author, entrepreneur, change agent, change catalyst, and just overall fantastic human being, Katie Mohamed, online today with her memoir, Brave, today. And you know what encapsulates the title, and we'll be hearing more from the author, is the sense of how courageous it is to write a memoir, to dig deep, to be vulnerable, but to also be so much in tune with the kind of work that she does, which is empowerment, especially women's empowerment, but not, just sort of leveraging on just women's empowerment and the kind of ripple effect that your living your purpose of empowerment has on people. I think one woman's story has the capability of inspiring, motivating, and really allowing one to reflect and move beyond what might hold you back from reaching your full potential. Assalamu alaikum, Katie. It's wonderful to have you on the show. Welcome to Book Bites.
Wa alaikum salam, and it's such a pleasure to be here with you, Shafinaz, and to, of course, our audience.
So I know that this is going to be quite a treat to share with our listeners and viewers today. Brave today. I read an earlier draft. I know this has been a long time in the making. You have dug deep. You've gone into your journey, through your journey, once again, relived so many memories. And this is not a hagiography. I know that you've also been incredibly vulnerable about your strengths and your weaknesses. Tell us about your journey. Where did it begin, and how did we come to have this beautiful published memoir in our hands today? And I'm going to talk more about the publishing aspect of it, because what a beautiful compilation. Congratulations. Tell us about where this all began for you.
So I often say that there's always a part of your life when you go through a transformation, there's always a catalyst of why you need to do something. And so for me, it was in 2019, the loss of my beloved sister-in-law in a car accident on my birthday. She was buried on my birthday. And a year later, we went into lockdown. And Halima was someone that would always wish me happy birthday. But the first person, and that was the first year in a lockdown, a milestone birthday, no Halima. And it was also like a sense of like reflection of mortality and well, questions of mortality. And I realized that life is so fragile that we don't get to tell our stories, we don't get to leave our own legacies. So yeah, so for me the book is an ode to her, for actually um, inspiring me, or actually motivating me to get my story told.
That's so beautiful. I know you've just come from the Durban launch of your book, so you've been celebrated by family. This all began for you from small town KZN, and you've gone out not just through South Africa, but you've impacted in so many spaces around the world. The journey, the beginnings, the humble beginnings, the lessons, and the great support of a loving family. Talk to us about some of that as well.
I always say is that you are you are the people that you surround yourself with. And I think the most important thing is the support of family for me has been, it has had an immense effect in my life, an impact in my life. I've had a very supportive dad. I always say I've had a very religious father, but a very liberated in his mind. So for me, it was, you know, whatever decision I wanted to make, whether it was good or bad, it was like, I'm there for you, you will learn your lesson through it. So having to actually share that journey with even the people from Richmond who actually drove to Durban was really special, because I think a lot of people don't know what you do because they just see you on social media and they see you busy. But it was so overwhelming to see people from Richmond there. And one of the first uh, people that actually ordered my book online was a girl from Richmond who I know for like about 50 years. And it was so special for her to see her there. So for me, it is so important that family is supportive, um, for your, especially us as people of color. We often we don't talk a lot about what we want to do, our aspirations. Um, and are you there?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, so for us, for me, I've never had a family that was not supportive, and I think for me, part of my inspiration is that we need to show up for each other in our family because we often tend to want other people to show up for us, like friends. Yes, they do, but it's not their duty. I think it's an obligation for our family to show up for us. And for me, it was so evident in KZN. So the KZN launch was so different to Joburg because it brought me back home.
That's fantastic. And you talk about the power of collaboration. You've held the red carpet out and doors open for entrepreneurs, for up and coming entrepreneurs, just as you had to make the road ahead for yourself. So much of that comes through in the memoir as well. You talk about, you draw on the inspiration of people you've met. And I love how you draw on both faith, resilience, and self belief, even while talking about imposter syndrome, right? We hear those voices in our head. We sometimes self-sabotage or second guess ourselves. Let's talk through some of that. I mean, you talk about the challenges, but you also really show appreciation for breaking beyond those so-called self-imposed limits. Let's hear about some of your thoughts on that because it comes through so beautifully in the different chapters of your book.
I think all my life I've had self-doubt because people around you um, wonder if you are good enough. Because remember, a good enough is the way you look, the way you speak, the kind of family you come from. And I think growing up, it was always about the rich part of the town versus where I come from the other side of town. So that kind of and as you would know that in the book it comes across very clear as you go to the madrasa and the school was the rich side, and you go through and look at all these beautiful homes that you are in, and then you go back to your home that is humble and simple. So for me it was you question why them, not you. And I always say is if you dream it, you believe it because you can achieve it. And I think for me is I did not want to be that girl that had the small village mentality. I wanted to be that girl that was beyond the town. So for me, I think I've always had self-doubt. And I've had some really great mentors in my life that made me question why I am self-doubt. Because with self-doubt is self-sabotage. And we all are so guilty of self-sabotage. But self-sabotage, self-doubt, and imposter syndrome has nothing to do with whether we can do the job or not, or whether we can write a book or not. It's that self-esteem issues that we have, and it's sometimes we want to be humble. And I always say excessive humility is self-sabotage itself, because as people of color, we often are not allowed to kind of be proud of ourselves, of our achievements. So we want to, we want to dim our light, and that's how we grow up. So I had to navigate myself through getting through that imposter syndrome. And I still have that imposter syndrome. When I'm at spaces that I feel that are larger than me, I know that I'm so privileged to be in these places. But I also look around and say, I'm so grateful of being there. So imposter syndrome, is something we all suffer with, but we have to work through it. And we have to have a sense of belonging for us not to have imposter syndrome.
It's so humbling to hear you speak, knowing your story and having again been through the final version of your book. Because I mean, to have accomplished and to say, well, you've done this and this and this, and then to understand that you still have that doubt, but still that moment that says, but what makes me special to be in this space, is humbling for anyone to read. And that's why I feel, and I've said this to you off air, that this is a workbook. And I see that you've actually kept space for notes of reflection, which I think is so valuable. So you've got space for notes and reflections. And I really found it special that from a publishing perspective, this book is an experience. It's not just that I feel, okay, you've done the magic of the memoir, you've written your story, which is amazing in its own, but the experience of paging through magazine quality material. I just want to see if this actually shows on air. So you've got
Yeah.
Gratitude Brings Fortitude, chapter 9, and each chapter is sort of dedicated to this kind of like milestone that shows in the way the book is designed. So I want to commend you on that, because in a publishing space, it's just that the book is an aesthetic, it's an experience. It's not just that you've been humble and brave and courageous enough to put your story, but you've presented it in this way. Talk to us about some of the process of getting a story out there, just not just in terms of content, but the various processes of making sure that it's delivers as the influential image that comes across through it as well.
I think I was so appreciative of you and your input. I think over a year ago, and you literally did push me. And I think you also, and I was so grateful for having had that time with you where I was questioning self-publishing, and I did question it, and I was like, am I a real author if I self-publish thing? And I remember we had like a 2-hour conversation the one day. So I really am grateful for people like you. But that's the important part of having put something out there, that you can't do it on your own. Your story is your story to tell. But that's why partnerships are so important, because other people see things a little bit more clearer to you. So even though you are not clouded by what you're writing, but there are amazing people around you. So I had editors. Matthew Jones was an exceptional editor, and he was my ear, as in, as much as I wanted to say some things, he would question why I wanted to say it. So for me, putting something together is not it's not something you can do on your own. You have to have a team of people that are also supportive of you. So I also shared my story for other people like you to read it. And I think for me, it's when I had a few people like you and 2 other people that actually read the book, getting the feedback and say, you've got a story to tell. And I think that's, again, we question ourselves, why would anybody want to listen to my story? I'm just a little girl from a little village town. But I know that you and the 2 other people did say, but your story is valid. And for me, I know that putting this together was a painful experience, but it was a deeply emotional experience. But I know that I had to, as much as I wanted to be honest, I had to be sensitive. And I definitely had to deal with self doubt. But getting the tone right was also important for me. And I think that was quite challenging because, there's sometimes I didn't want to sound arrogant, and I looked at it and I was like, oh, because that's what we deal with. It's like, oh, am I sounding a little bit too arrogant here if I say something? So there was a lot of questioning when I did write the book, but boy, was it cathartic trying to get through all of this, and taking it out all of my brain. So I think the core messages and themes were there, and I had to choose this experience, like you said, and for me it was what was the narrative that was relevant to my overall story, and I also had to look at what would resonate with readers. So that is why the people around me that were editing it were looking at it as readers as well. So that was why I also ensured that I had the right people that also believed in my story as well.
I think as it gets read, because at conception phase, okay, you had a team of readers that you trusted. Thank you for trusting me with initial reading. And then as it goes along, now you're going to have people reading the final product and saying, oh, but I identify with this or that, or I don't identify with this, but it's a new perspective, which is also the power of story and writing our narratives. What was special for me is that you bring so many layers together. The one is the story of a small town girl surviving her circumstances and not allowing it to bog her down and getting out onto the street and selling door to door, for that matter, as a little girl. The survival instinct that made you who you are today comes through in the overall narrative. So there are people who know you for being where you are, where you come from. That's home, family, childhood friends. And then there's people who know Katie Mohamed, media personality out in Johannesburg doing things, right? And then to be able to bring those two together is very special because now you're at home launching the book and people get to have some insight into what it is that you do. And then you're in Joburg or in Cape Town or anywhere in the world, and people get to see where all of this came from and have a different perspective. And this is the power of bringing so many layers of your story together. How have some of the responses been? Because you do dig deep in the story, and it is incredible how you managed to do that. What have the responses been like so far? You've been launching over the last few weeks already.
Yeah, it has been overwhelming. I've had people that said that they read it first for me, um, but the second time they read it for themselves. And I think that is what's so important about it, is that the feedback that I've had is that, like you said, it is so deep, it's so raw, it's so vulnerable. And I think for me, I believe I've already done the job of inspiring people, and I feel that it's actually becoming a movement now, because I'm unearthing people that said, I have a story to tell, and I'd really
Mm.
like to write my own book, and for me, everybody has a story to tell. So I think for me that's a beautiful, the feedback that I've gotten. So yes, I think the positive feedback. I've not had one negative person, that somebody that said anything negative about the story. So I think for me it's been overwhelming. And you know me from a social media perspective and a business perspective. It's always, the stuff that I do is always about other people and other things. Even if I host my mentorship masterclasses, even though I am the catalyst, it's all about other people. So I think for me, just this story being about me, I the one thing I didn't care about is that people might judge me, because I think I got over that in the book. um, I did worry about people thinking, like, why would you be writing a book? Like, who are you? Like, why would you be writing a book? Like, you haven't flown to the moon, or um, but then I realized is that we expect that. We only expect people that are activists in the 60s and 70s, or people that are very well known sports people, to write a memoir. Because I think for me, it's not a lot of people are able to write a memoir, because you got to really dig deep. And the other thing is, a lot of people are saying is they get to ask themselves about certain things. And I don't know if we're going to get into it, but like identity that I talk about, they are beginning to question their own identity and how they feel about their identity. So I think for me, the themes that I have put in the book, as much as it's a memoir about me, it seems that the feedback is becoming that it's a universal theme, but it feels like it's shared experiences. So if you have shared experience like hope and fear and grief and joy, um, people that read the book are feeling empathetic and have a connection. But then there's human aspirations, like our a quest for success and fulfillment, and people are like, well, I really like that part of it. So as much as it's a personal journey, it is, like you said, it is layered, and it is resonating with various readers, because it's becoming motivational. And yeah, so I think for me, the feedback is that I get to share my experiences, my life experiences, but I also get to tap in. I'm getting to get people to tap into their experiences and embrace their vulnerabilities.
And I think giving visibility to your story and by extension, giving visibility to the potential for others to write their stories is part of the joy of being able to put a memoir of this nature out there, because you do move beyond the personal. And you give voice and you give visibility to Richmond, to smaller parts of KZN, to other parts of the country, and to this idea of being able to do something, to follow your dreams and follow your passion. And I mean, courage, wisdom, passion is the sort of byline here, but you go through it in the chapters as well. So this is not just, well, I'm not going to say just a memoir, but this is not just your story. It does, as you say, go beyond it and become sort of a map for how to do this life thing, which we're all looking for leadership, right? We're all looking for various forms of leadership. So why not present it in this way? You talk about gratitude, which I really appreciated. You talk about being in service, which is so much a part of who you are. But striving for Rida was something I enjoyed. Talk to us about this philosophy of engaging gratitude and understanding who you are, warts and all, and how you can actually use that to reach your full potential.
I think, like I say in the book, is being thankful for life and breathing has become more than just words, right? Just our breath itself is something we think about being grateful about cars and money and then yes, we should be, but the mere fact is that we have something that is allows us to a being. And I think for me, gratitude has been about breath, as I said. And it is also for my soul, first of all, is that just being grateful for having, being able to have the soul. So I think you know we end up taking our blessings for granted. And gratitude is the key to attracting abundance, like I say in the book. And it's a key to attracting prosperity. It's a key to attracting the peace in your life. And for me, I think I am not only grateful for, like I said, my breath, but my experiences and my life lessons. So I think that was part of what my striving for Reda mean. And Reda in Arabic is peace and contentment. And it's like, how do we strive for peace and contentment? So for me, I think when I looked, I started the journey before I had COVID, and the chapter of Reda actually came after my COVID experience. And I think for me it was I think it was how can I alter my approach to life? And that was, we think about happiness as, because happiness we know is external. So I looked at what is making me happy externally and what brings me joy. And I think joy is something that is so internal and it's so beautiful. And I think for me, my whole chapter on striving for Reda was really about, it was so personal for me, because it was it was like having an out of body experience. It's literally taking my soul, putting it aside, and looking at what I should strive for. And you know what? It's an ongoing thing. It's not just like, hey, you know what? I'm joyful now and I'm good. Because a lot of people, when you ask them, they're like, oh, Alhamdulillah, I'm good. But good for what? I think it's important for us to experience what we are good for now. And I think for me, it's that reflecting. When I wrote that chapter, it was really about reflecting on my past, and just being kind to myself, because I think we all are dealt quite tough cards in our life, and so I think how I did it, and I literally talk about, is um, is silence. Is that because we're so busy with a busy mind and a busy brain, there's 120 voices there every day. It's really just how do you silence your mind? Because when you silence your mind, you get to hear yourself. You get to hear the inner self, and I think for me that was really, uh, really special, because I started to be able to look at my habits. And habits are, habits are something you can learn and unlearn. And I think those are the things that I really, and also the one thing I've always been is I have been a very aggressive person. I used to always be angry, and I always say in my book as well is that my one of my mentors said to me, "What could you stop being an angry, brown girl?" And and for me is sometimes I look at other people and I'm like, oh wow, it took me 54 years to not get angry with myself. And I would look at people like you and a couple of other people that always seem so peaceful. And I would be envious of that kind of people like you that are always walking around with like like peaceful and calm, because I just have a loud voice. And I think for me that has been again part of my joy. And I think it was really pausing, um, acknowledging my mistakes that I've made, and engaging with uh, with reading more. Reading my book more, the holy book more, and understanding it. So for me, those were the. I think it was conquering my chaotic thoughts, I would say.
I think that if you can take your whole stream, the dotted line of life experiences, and use them as a catalyst to your own movement, your own growth, then you've made something of it. Then you haven't wasted that time. As far as peace goes, it's definitely a fluid process. It's not a constant, and it's a process for all of us to be able to engage different things that catalyze different responses from us. I mean, we're not existing in isolation. So there'll be something that's triggering and glimmering hope all the time. So it's just what you work with it, and that comes through very definitely in this book. And what you've done here is added to, I mean, we're in ending the month of heritage, but you've added to this conversation about legacy making and heritage. And I know that you're going to have an incredible time launching over the next few weeks and months, inspiring more of the same. Where can we find the book? Where can we find more of the conversations that you'll be having? Where can the youth join you in this ongoing conversation to be more of who you are?
Well, my book is available online at ktm.me, because that's my website. And yes, I think my journey and my story is beginning to unfold on my website, which is KTB Mohamed. And I often say, and I've said this to you, is that my name is Khadija and my stage name is Katie Mohammed, and I'm okay with that, because you can only Google Katie Mohammed and you can't Google Khadija, but I'm still the same person, and I'm okay with that. Um, but yes, definitely my social media, like you are aware that I'm very active on social media. Katie Mohammed on Instagram, on Facebook. But yeah, on LinkedIn, I write. I love to write, and I write a lot of thought leadership pieces on mentorship, on a seat at the table, on transformation, on leadership, and that's my core. And my title, Brave Today, is really a motivational phrase, and it's for everyone. It's to encourage us to face each day with courage and confidence, and to be present with bravery, because let's be honest, to face the daily challenges that we have every day, we have to be brave and strong. And no matter how small your bravery is, it encourages you to live in the present. And that's why I always say is that don't wait for the right time to act, to be brave. You got to be brave today. And again, the most important thing I write about and I talk about in my social media is the road to purpose. And it comes across in my book and how important the road to purpose is, because it's not a one-way road. It's really, it's, it has its, turns and but through your road to purpose, you find yourself, because you start aligning with your goals and your values. You collect the good people around you. You learn to be kind to yourself, and like I say in my book, it's you being in service of self first and being in service of others. So you show up for yourself and show up for others, but also be a voice. On my social media, you would say is that be a voice, create your legacies, but most importantly, what is the impact that you are leaving in the world? So my social media, as much as I'm stylish and I talk about style and fashion, I think I would say that I do like to speak about thought leadership pieces.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much for your time. We had a chance to talk about the book, and from BookBytes, we wish you everything of the best with the journey ahead. We'll be watching those social media pages for more of your workshops, talks, and wishing you all the best, inshallah. And with that, I think that
Shukran.
ends this week's session and our heritage features for the month, inshallah. Thanks so much once again.
Thank you for having me.
And so there you have it, this weekend's edition of Salam Media Book Bites. And we heard from Katie Mohammed's Brave today. With that, I'll leave you with the rest of the evening session. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.